Hi everyone, it's Ren here. I hope you're doing well, guys. Welcome to my room. It's been a few weeks since I recorded a video, so I've missed you, and I hope you're glad to see me again. I have been busy with creative writing. Working on my current novel has taken some time, so. Just my mind has been really full as a result, and now that I've kind of gotten to a first draft of a manuscript, I have a bit more time. So let's see how this goes. I wanted to discuss something that has been kind of playing my mind recently. I've been watching a lot of anime. This is kind of the contextual background. But films as well, anime films, Netflix, generally speaking. Been watching a lot of stuff in the evenings, alone, with my housemate, regardless. And I was watching an anime called The Promised Neverland. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. No doubt some of you will have heard of it. And it's essentially an anime about an orphanage where children discover a terrible truth about what's going to happen to them when they get to age 12 or sometimes earlier, and they think they're being sent to families. And so the children, learning that kind of dark truth, try to devise a way of getting out. And I watched it in a few days because I actually thought it was quite brilliant. And it really struck me that the three main characters are three N-types, the children. I think one is an ENFJ, Emma, the girl. Norman would be an INFJ, and then Ray would be an INTP. I think that's what seems the most likely. Although Ray, I think, is seen as an INTJ by some. I think he's more an INTP in my opinion. But clearly Norman is kind of like the really, really smart guy, the genius type in that anime. And it got me thinking that I'm glad to see this kind of transition. It's probably not really been a transition as strong as I feel it to be, but to me anyway, as a viewer of anime, it's kind of a little bit of a transition. It's just my impression that in the last few years we're starting to see INFJ characters displayed in a wider sort of spectrum of INFJ subtypes. What subtype of INFJ still dominates in fiction is the kind of, sure, smart, but mostly just like really friendly and helpful person, who's there and who showcases a lot of FEUs and is not, most of the time not the main character, but is kind of there and playing a part in the story as a support, in a sense, as a helper. But the emphasis is really on intelligence, at least in my experience, until maybe the close of the last decade. Rarely on like them being the smartest, or them being the quirkiest, or them being this or that. It was often the kind of slightly square, very morally driven, very altruistic, helpful type. Focus was on that, and so kind of again like a helper kind of type. And I feel that with Armin from Attack on Titan and Norman from The Promised Neverland, but I think that there probably are more examples, of that in anime and in movies. I'm starting to see just different types. Armin, the one whose vision is, sort of the longest term vision, and who's kind of the intellect of the anime, and whose vision is in fact shown to be deeper and more profound than Erwin's vision, the ENTJ's vision. And in The Promised Neverland, again, in terms of brain, you know, this is the kind of mind aspect of the INFJ instead of the heart aspect of the INFJ is really displayed both in Attack on Titan with Armin and in The Promised Neverland with Norman. Now, the heart is there, the FE is very clear, but, you know, it's really interesting to see that NI and TI are kind of showcased more than I have in the past, you know, and that's just something that I've noticed. And if you guys are aficionados, if you really like your anime, if you really like your fiction, be it movies or anything else, or shows, you know, I would be very curious to hear about shows where you have come across, yet again, different subtypes of INFJ. What I would like to see, and so far I have to say that I have failed to see it. Now, this is not a subtype of INFJ as such. But it's a characteristic, a feature that a lot of INFJs have, and I don't see it displayed in fiction that often, and I miss it. I think this is something that that I would like to see more, and I think to some extent in the book that I'm working on, his preliminary title is The Soft Way. The Soft Way is the working title of my manuscript. Now, it might end up being something else. The Soft Way is a concept that occupies a great part of the book. It's a lot longer than the interview. For those of you who have read the interview, you know it's only about 165 pages. Like the book I'm working on is currently clocking in around 500. Could end up being longer. So it's quite an ambitious book. But I'm trying to create an INFJ character in the book alongside other characters, where that particular characteristic which I'm talking about is on display, because it's not enough on display. And that characteristic I'm thinking about is quirkiness, as simple as that, because quirkiness is a trait that is very common in INFJs, and people don't really realize that. People who are not INFJs don't really realize that. If we stick to the N-types just for now, when you think quirkiness, what types do you conjure up? It's not going to be INTJs, it's not going to be ENFJs, it's not going to be ENTJs. Of course, these types can be quirky, but it's not what you think, the types that you think about. You think mostly about ENFPs, ENTPs, INFPs, and INTPs, right? It's kind of the NPs are the masters of quirkiness in the popular conception. But I think that to the extent that NPs dominate in reality when it comes to quirkiness, whimsicality, originality, you know, these different aspects of a personality, I think that they're very much challenged on the J side by the INFJ. But that's something that is not very well known. And you see it in fiction, you see it in the way that people who are not INFJ represent INFJ in their minds and in their texts. That feature is not really there, and it refers back to the fact that the INFJ humor is not really understood very well by people who are not INFJs or people who do not know INFJs personally. Because the humor is quirky, the personality is quirky, sometimes can flirt with eccentricity, but it's not something that you think a J-type is going to display, and yet it very much is there. But where is it in fiction? Now, I can think of one example, and it's not an anime, it's a TV show, and if you have not seen that TV show, I really recommend you watch it. Not only because there's an INFJ character who's a really great INFJ character, because he has so many different characteristics, the heart, the mind, and the quirkiness. And that's Dale Cooper from Twin Peaks. Twin Peaks is a show that was directed by David Lynch, came out in the early 90s. I think a third season came out maybe 5 years ago or something like that. It's supposed to be great. Have not seen it yet. But the first season of Twin Peaks is a fantastic show. Second season is a little long and it gets very strange. But if you're a big fan of the first season, you probably will want to check the second. But Dale Cooper, the INFJ type, Dale Cooper, is that guy who has all the traits, and I'm just waiting to see more characters like Dale Cooper with their own personal traits, their own idiosyncrasies, but INFJs like that, so that people stop thinking that INFJs are well, on top of being the loyal buddy and who's kind of smart but mostly focused on helping others and and loving others and so on, he's also like capable of having a genius mind or a very smart mind, a long-term vision that is not the sole repository of the INTJ, because in fiction that's often kind of a role reserved for the INTJ. The smart one is the INTJ, the strange one is the INTP, the nerd. Their sensitive poets type or tortured type is the INFP, and that again, I could be making a video about INFPs as well, because INFPs are often quite typecast in fiction, and it's not true at all. It doesn't represent the full breadth of the INFP. So I could be making a video about that too, because I've thought about INFPs as well. But more characters in anime in the vein of Dale Cooper from Twin Peaks. I would love seeing that, because I think any INFJ would recognize a part of themselves in that character. And again, there's that quirkiness somewhere, that eccentricity that is not the dominant trait, but persists and subsists within the personality, rather than just being this like very justice-driven, kind of stoic and dry person who will sacrifice nothing in the pursuit of virtue and truth and blah 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 blah. The INFJ, like, these virtues matter, but it's mixed with so many other things. And I wish that in the future more characters will come forward to represent us better. But let me know your thoughts in the comments, and if you have any recommendation of any show, anything, please share. Because at the moment, like I said, I'm binging on anime and binging on Netflix, and I think it's gonna go on for a little while. In the meantime, take care, guys, and I do hope I see you sooner, than in the next 3 weeks. I think it's pretty likely that you will see me sooner than that. Ciao. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday.